You've felt it, the chilling void of silence, the deliberate absence of words that screams louder than any argument. The silent treatment isn't just avoidance. It's a psychological weapon, a calculated act of control wielded by those who understand the raw power of withdrawal. Think about it. When someone refuses to acknowledge your existence, what does that do to you? It triggers a primal fear, the fear of exclusion, of being cast out of the tribe. This isn't just emotional manipulation. It's a strategic strike against your sense of worth, designed to make you beg for scraps of attention. Why do you think cult leaders, narcissists, and even governments use silence as a tool? Because it works. It destabilizes, it isolates, and it forces you into submission without a single word being spoken. The silent treatment isn't passive. It's aggression in its most refined form. And if you've ever been on the receiving end, you know the madness it breeds, the overanalyzing, the self-doubt, the desperate attempts to fix what was never broken in the first place. This is the dark art of psychological warfare, disguised as mere silence. But let's peel back the layers. Why does silence cut so deep? Because human beings are wired for connection. Our survival once depended on the tribe, and rejection meant death. The silent treatment exploits this ancient fear, turning your need for belonging against you. It's not just about ignoring someone. It's about making them feel invisible, stripping them of their voice, their agency. And here's the brutal truth. The person who wields silence this way knows exactly what they're doing. They're not bad at communication. They're experts in it. They've learned that words can be argued against. But silence? Silence is a void you can't fight. You can't reason with it, you can't negotiate with it, you can only drown in it. And the more you scramble for a response, the more power you hand them. That's the trap. That's the game. So ask yourself, when someone denies you the basic courtesy of acknowledgement, are they really just hurt? Or are they asserting dominance? Because true conflict resolution requires engagement. Silence, when weaponized, is the absence of resolution, its control masquerading as indifference. And what about the aftermath? The scars left by prolonged silence are invisible but corrosive. Unlike a heated argument that leaves clear wounds, the silent treatment erodes you slowly, like acid on metal. You start questioning your own reality. Was I wrong? Did I deserve this? The manipulator doesn't just want compliance. They want you to internalize their narrative, to rewrite your own mind in their favor. This is psychological gaslighting at its most insidious. Think of prisoners in solitary confinement. Studies show that even the toughest break under prolonged isolation. Why? Because the human psyche cannot sustain itself in a void. We need feedback, reflection, the echo of our existence in others. When that's ripped away, the mind turns on itself. Now imagine that same torture applied in relationships, workplaces, families. No shackles, no bars, just the crushing weight of someone's refusal to see you. That's not love. That's not discipline. That's coercion. And the moment you accept it as normal, you've already lost. So who wields this weapon and why? The silent treatment is the hallmark of the emotionally tyrannical, those who crave dominance but lack the courage to confront. They're the partners who vanish for days after a disagreement, the bosses who freeze you out instead of giving feedback, the parents who withdraw affection to enforce obedience. Notice the pattern? It's always the powerless pretending to be powerful. Real strength doesn't manipulate, it communicates. But the silent abuser knows their actual arguments wouldn't hold up under scrutiny, so they bypass reason entirely. They force you to fill the silence with apologies they didn't earn, compromises they don't deserve. And the tragic irony? Their silence screams their weakness. A secure person doesn't need these tactics. Only the fragile do. Yet we keep falling for it, mistaking their reticence for depth, their cruelty for mystery. How many times have you romanticized the strong, silent type, only to realize too late that silence isn't strength? It's just another mask for fear. But here's what they don't want you to realize. Silence only has power if you give it power. The moment you stop scrambling for their approval, the spell breaks. Think about it. Why does a toddler's tantrum work? Because the parent reacts. Now scale that up to adult relationships, the dynamic is the same. The silent treatment thrives on your desperation for resolution, your inability to tolerate emotional limbo. But what if you could? What if, instead of begging for crumbs of attention, you mirrored their silence with unshakable indifference? That's when the tables turn. Manipulators rely on your hunger for closure. They feed on your anxiety. But when you starve them of that reaction, their weapon disintegrates in their hands. This isn't about playing games, it's about reclaiming your sovereignty. The truth is, no one can control you without your consent. So the next time someone tries to freeze you out, ask yourself, why would I chase someone who treats my presence like an option? Your silence in return isn't revenge. It's evolution. Yet there's a darker dimension to this when institutions and systems use silence as a weapon. Governments that disappear dissenters into unmarked cells. Corporations that ghost employees instead of firing them. Religions that excommunicate those who question doctrine. This is the silent treatment scaled into a cultural force, where exclusion becomes a mechanism of control. Why do you think whistleblowers are first isolated before they're attacked? Because silence is the precursor to erasure. It's not enough to punish the rebellious. They must be made invisible, their voices smothered before they can inspire others. The message is clear. Step out of line, and you'll cease to exist socially, professionally, even historically. This is how hierarchies maintain themselves, not just through violence, but through the threat of void. And the most terrifying part? It works because we're conditioned from childhood to fear ostracism more than death itself. But recognize this. Every revolution begins when someone decides the silence is louder than their fear. The question is, when the system tries to unperson you, will you let it? Now consider the flip side, the seductive allure of self-imposed silence. The gray rock strategy, the deliberate withdrawal from toxic dynamics, the monk who retreats to the mountain. Isn't that also a form of weaponized silence? Yes, but with one crucial difference. Intent. The manipulator's silence is a chokehold, designed to suffocate. The strategist's silence is a scalpel, used to excise what no longer serves them. The difference lies in who holds the power. When you choose silence as protection, you're not inflicting pain, you're refusing to absorb it. This is the silence of the chess player who lets their opponent talk themselves into defeat, the negotiator who waits out the desperation in the room. Mastery lies in knowing when silence is your sword and when it's your shield. But beware the hypocrisy of those who preach detachment while demanding your attention. The gurus who urge inner peace, but lose their minds when ignored. True power doesn't announce its silence. It simply exists, undisturbed. So tell me, is your silence a prison you've built for others, or a fortress you've claimed for yourself? Let's shatter the grand illusion, the belief that enduring the silent treatment makes you noble. Society romanticizes suffering in silence, framing it as patience or resilience. But there's nothing virtuous about tolerating emotional warfare. Martyrdom isn't wisdom. It's just another form of self-destruction. Why do you think abusers escalate their tactics over time? Because they're testing your boundaries, and every time you accept their silence, you teach them how far they can go. The message you send by enduring it? My dignity is negotiable. And the moment you internalize that lie, you become complicit in your own erosion. Real strength isn't measured by how much punishment you can absorb. It's measured by your willingness to walk away from what harms you. The silent treatment only works if you stay on the hook, mistaking attachment for love, fear for respect. But here's the awakening. You don't owe anyone your suffering. The exit door exists. The question is, do you have the audacity to use it? Let's dissect the biological betrayal, how your own brain conspires to keep you trapped in these cycles. Neuroscience reveals that social pain, rejection, exclusion, silence activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. That's why the silent treatment feels like a wound. Your body can't distinguish between being iced out by a partner and being physically injured. Evolution hardwired you this way because exile meant death to our ancestors. But here's where it gets sinister. Prolonged exposure to this pain floods your system with cortisol, literally shrinking your prefrontal cortex. The part of you that thinks rationally, that would normally say this treatment is unacceptable. Instead, your hijacked brain screams, "Fix it at any cost." This isn't weakness, it's biological sabotage. The manipulator isn't just playing with your emotions. They're exploiting your DNA. But knowledge is your counterattack. Recognize that every craving for their attention is just ancient programming misfiring in a modern world. You're not broken, you're being played by 200,000-year-old survival instincts. The question is, will you let Paleolithic biology dictate your self-worth? So here's the ultimate rebellion. Steal back the silence. Let them rot in their own muteness while you build a life so resonant. Their absence becomes the gift you never knew you needed. The true alchemy? Transforming their weapon into your wisdom. When they withhold words, answer with action, move, create, thrive in the space their noise once occupied. Their silence tried to make you small. Use it as the blank canvas to become monumental. The history of human progress is written by those who refused to let others dictate their reality. Every artist, inventor, and revolutionary first had to endure the silence of disbelief before the world echoed their name. So let them ignore you, let them freeze you out. While they're busy playing God with their petty withholdings, you'll be out here becoming one. The final truth? Silence only wins if you still care about the verdict of those who weaponize it. But when you stop pleading for their acknowledgement, when their indifference becomes irrelevant, that's when you'll hear the most beautiful sound of all, your own voice, unfiltered and unafraid, finally free.